Hi everyone, I'm Emily Sullivan. I'm a family doctor in Saskatoon at Academic Family Medicine. So thanks to the College of Medicine for having me do the Young Innovators talk. Today I'm going to tell you about how to use social media to fight an infodemic. So I don't have any conflicts of interest. I do run an Instagram account called yxe.md, but unfortunately I've received no financial incentives for running and doing this account. I wanted to acknowledge that I live and work on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. So the objectives for the talk today, firstly, I hope that you'll appreciate the importance of health advocacy. Then I want you to be able to recognize our current infodemic and what that means. Understand the role that social media can play in health advocacy. I hope that you'll be able to correct misinformation on social media and that you'll be able to competently and safely use social media for medical advocacy. You'll see in the talk there'll be some examples of things that I've posted to my account. So why does health advocacy even matter? Well, obviously we all know that advocating for our individual patients is important and we do it very often, but advocating for the health of our community is actually equally as important, and it gives the added benefit of improving the health of your own patients, but also yourself and your own family and your community. So both the Royal College and the College of Family Physicians highlight the importance of being competent in community advocacy and being socially accountable. And truly, as physicians, our voice really can make a difference and can impact system level change. We can influence policy that affects both health both directly, for example, like mask mandates during COVID, or indirectly, like climate change initiatives. And we're generally well respected by the community, by the political leaders, and our voice truly can make a difference. Most of the time, unfortunately not all the time, but we can truly be advocates for better health in our community. So what's the infodemic? The infodemic is not just the misinformation that's out there, but it's like an overabundance of information, both accurate and false. And just as a virus or a pandemic is, it spreads between humans, mostly via digital information systems. And since there's just so much of it, and it's so widely spread, it results in difficulty finding trustworthy, reliable, factual information. And then leads to the spread of misinformation, and unfortunately the widespread of misinformation. And as we've definitely seen with the COVID pandemic, it's exacerbated during worldwide infectious pandemics. That was also seen with the SARS pandemic, Ebola. It's just times when the community is more aware of medical issues and takes things into their own hands in a way, and information comes about that is not accurate and is just extremely widely shared in the digital age that we're in. So there was a study done in October 2020 and found, unsurprisingly, that misinformation surged on social media during the pandemic. This primarily looked at Facebook, Twitter, online newspapers, blogs. The most common type of misinformation out there was simply rumors that included unverified and false claims about COVID. And then this was followed by true conspiracy theories, um, including things like the origins and malicious goals of COVID-19. If they repeated the study now, they'd probably find similar conspiracy theories around the vaccines. And then the other type of misinformation was surrounding stigma, and that led to discrimination due to illness, exposure, race. So you'll see on this chart here, while there is significantly less misinformation originating from Canada, there is a huge amount coming out of the States, and we're just very intricately connected to them, and unsurprisingly, like we're linked and affected by American social media. So we see and unfortunately are led astray by a lot of the misinformation coming out of the United States. So there's 4 pillars, or 4 cake layers, if you will, of infodemic, of the infodemic model, and ways that we can manage it. So you'll see here on this information cake, science is the smallest layer of the cake, since it yields the smallest amount of data, and is generally rigorous and selective in its publication. The next level would be policy and healthcare practice, which we would hope it would be based off of science, but not always, and it's influenced by other things. So there's a larger amount of information in that level of cake. And then the next would be news media, where we're starting to see a lot more information, but it's generally more curated and hopefully, but definitely not always, more accurate than social media, which is the largest layer and includes basically everything that's out there on Facebook and Twitter, everything for everyone to see and sift through. And then, so there's, there's back and forth between all these layers. And especially the news media, the social media, they can really play off each other. So in order for a person to be able to find and interpret accurate information available in all of these cake layers, they need to have good e-health literacy, which is one of the pillars of infodemic management. So by being e-health literate ourselves, we can then work to improve knowledge translation and knowledge interpretation for other people, including our patients. And then being e-health literate in this day and age will just hopefully increase their overall health literacy, which is something that's obviously historically talked about more than specifically e-health literacy. So it's really important as health professionals with a background in medical and scientific knowledge for us to participate in infovalence, they call it, so information monitoring of everything that's out there. So just monitoring the info and the misinformation that's out there, and then participating in fact-checking and peer review of this information. And this can be done, just on individual posts. If someone posts something that you see is not factual, you can reply to that with a factual link, or it can be done like more rigorously, as some of the studies, like the one that I just showed you, kind of looking at where is misinformation coming from. But definitely can just be as simple as like reporting a post that includes conspiracy theory that you see posted on Facebook. So not only that, but when we are just kind of passively participating in infovalence, so like scrolling your Twitter feed, if you will, we get an added benefit of knowing what patients are referring to if they bring up a kind of like social media popular conspiracy, which I know a lot of us have really, dealt with and struggled with and encountered more often than usual with the pandemic and with vaccines and COVID vaccine hesitancy. So it is kind of nice to have your finger on the pulse of what is going on and why do patients potentially have these, misinformed views of science and medicine. So how can we use social media as medical professionals? Well, the nice thing about this is like you can kind of participate as much or as little as you want, and you can just do it on the sidelines here and there. Or of course you can, take on a whole project to become a social media myth busting advocate. But correcting misinformation, even in just, a small post on your community blog, can truly help and can truly, you know, increase vaccine uptake in a home that was hesitant and you don't even really realize it. So ways that you can engage with misinformation. So Dr. Michelle Cohen, she's a family doc out of Ontario, and she does a lot of social media advocacy and myth busting. She's really great. If you're on Twitter, you should follow her. So she puts out a nice she put out a nice blog post about how you can engage with misinformation. And this is just kind of, you don't have to have your own advocacy account or anything. These are things you can just kind of do and things that you should keep in mind if you are thinking of engaging with misinformation online. So firstly, what is the setting? Is this like a giant viral Twitter post and hundreds of thousands of people might see your comment and a couple might realize that they were misinformed? Is this a neighborhood Facebook group where you can, potentially make a difference in someone in your community? Or is this like really niche and it's like a local pet shop's Instagram and they're going to delete everything that you would write anyway? So keep that in mind. If it's if you're going to put in a lot of work to correct misinformation, consider whether it's just going to be deleted because it's it's a Facebook group for people with a special type of goldfish, and they only allowed goldfish postings. The other thing to consider, the timing. So she says trolls are never an urgent problem. And it's so important to keep this in mind because it can be really tempting, like when you see a troll comment something like at you or something really inappropriate, or just a conspiracy theory totally out there, and it makes you so angry. You don't have to deal with it right away. Like if you're in the middle of clinic, just set it aside. If you're at home having family time, deal with it later. Give yourself some time to kind of like stop and reflect and not clap back with a angry tweet that you may later regret. So I think one of the most important things that she brings up is consider the audience and the purpose. So you may be directing your explicit message at a particular person expressing extremist views, but you're actually implicitly engaging with a completely different audience, silent readers and lurkers. And this is so important. And we know this from the like anti-vax to vaccine hesitant literature where, you know, like the true anti-vax, we're basically not going to convert. The time you spend with them is, you know, maybe not always, but so often like a waste essentially. But it's the vaccine hesitant. It's the people that are just like out there, not really sure, gathering information, that you can truly lead them in the right direction and correct their misunderstandings. Because, you know, they might think that it's reasonable to listen to, you know, some random person that has no background knowledge of science or medicine but is posting an inflammatory news article on Facebook. But then you come in and, you know, you're saying to this person who posted the inflammatory conspiracy article, like, this is untrue, this is the like real data and information, etc. And it's this person who's just kind of like reading and, you know, maybe would have been led astray and convinced of this um, conspiracy article, but then they read yours and they're like, oh, well, that does make sense. Um, so literally, if you can just provide a factual counterpoint to denormalize the misinformation, that can be the biggest thing. And really, like, you can change opinions of potentially not the poster, but all the people reading it. And the other thing, this kind of ties back to the timing. Try to keep it professional. Don't do clapbacks. So that's like a clapback would be where you say something kind of nasty in a quick reply. And really, if you can just kind of like step back after a troll posts something and not reply right away, I find it easier to do that. And you don't have to argue. The easiest thing you could do to fight misinformation is just like you see a post that has inaccurate info, you post a link related to this and then mute the thread. Don't even think about it. Don't come back to it. You're not going to get alerts for it. On my Instagram, I have several like trolls that will post crazy conspiracy things and sometimes like very rude comments and abusive comments to like myself or other people, and I just have them completely restricted. So they're essentially screaming into the void because they think that everyone can see their comments, but no one can because I don't authorize them, and I don't even look at them myself because I don't care what they have to say. So definitely like don't feel you need to get into a like hour-long argument with someone about this. So the last thing is you should feel good about your service of engaging with misinformation because it truly is important and you really, really can make a difference, especially with the kind of, you know, slightly misinformed or just hesitant or confused that are reading things. And as she says, using our positions of privilege to stand up for science and public health is important work to take pride in and to perform to the best of our abilities. So what if you want to kind of take it one step further? What if you want to actually be like a social media advocate or mythbuster? I mean, definitely like this is not for everyone, but if you think you want to kind of take this on and you know, create an extra account or just create a part of what you do from your personal accounts, then yeah, that's awesome. So here's kind of how you can get started on that. And then just on the side there, that's an example of like a post that I made to try to explain things a bit. So things to consider when you are getting started on your social media advocacy journey. So firstly, what are your objectives? Do you want to educate people? Are you looking to like, collaborate or connect with other people, be more of an advocate? We'll get a bit more into all that. And then decide like what is your reach and your audience going to be. And that will kind of inform what platform you want to use. The most common being like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Snapchat. And yeah, I'll explain a couple more of those in a bit more detail. So I had decided at the start of the pandemic that there just wasn't a lot of information getting to my demographic of people. So essentially like people in their mid-20s to 40, and like people where I lived in Saskatoon. At the start of the pandemic, like our health region and the government, they put out messaging on Facebook, but not a lot of people that I knew had that, like younger people. And they put out some on Twitter, but again, like kind of hit or miss. Whether people I know have that, and just as like a 34-year-old woman, young mom in Saskatoon, I happen to know that like a lot of people in my demographic were on Instagram, and I felt that that would be a good way to get more information out to a similar demographic that doesn't really watch the news, not on Facebook so much. So this was a meme that I made that was popular around the start of the pandemic from Glee. I'm going to create an Instagram account that is so helpful it stops COVID, but then we ended up with a bit of a dumpster fire anyways, so I did not meet my goals. So yeah, first thing, decide what are your goals and objectives. Common one, provide health education. And this can be on any topic, like it could just be like general health education, in my case like public health and pandemic information, can be more like niche into your specialty, or it could be just like myth busting of medical myths and misinformation in general. Dr. Jen Gunter is a obs-gyn who's pretty famous for that. And then how are you going to deliver your content? I personally like memes because they're quick and dirty, and I like kind of visual things. That's also why I used Instagram. But some people, release videos on YouTube, or kind of more involved infographics, stories like short videos. Or is your goal going to be that you want to like advocate for a specific cause, either like a community or a national issue, or a specific policy change, or maybe you just want to connect with other physicians? Can be really useful, like coordinating research across the country, just gaining like practice tips and CME. Maybe you want to like connect with other physicians to kind of create like an advocacy group where you work towards, making policy change or whatever. Or another goal and objective that's kind of more common in the States, I think, is like using social media to promote your practice. We don't really see too much of that here. So just to expand on education and advocacy a bit. So things that you might do is engage with stakeholders in addressing health issues. This is probably most easily done on Twitter, that I'll explain a bit more in a second. Or do you just want to advocate for health policy in general, like putting things out there? Do you want to deliver a specific health message? That's kind of the knowledge translation side of things. Or do you want to do more of the infovalence, so understanding what's out there? kind of correcting misinformation or like true myth busting, or do the peer review, which is kind of like the infovalence. So see what's out there, you know, help other physicians with their causes and stuff. So this is just a bit of information about the various social media platforms that are out there. Like I said, kind of the most popular being Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, WhatsApp. So definitely like Facebook used by a huge amount of people, like huge platform. WhatsApp also getting very popular, but definitely with the like younger demographics. So kind of like the teens and young 20-year-olds. And if you look at the graph here, generally more women than men on Facebook, a bit of an older age range. YouTube pretty split, but more men and kind of mid-age range. Twitter, again, more men, kind of like younger to mid-age, more actually like higher education levels of Twitter. And then Instagram, kind of the like younger population, more women. Yeah, so once you kind of decide like what is your targeted demographic, then you could decide what platform to use. So like I said, I chose Instagram because I knew it. I like the idea of using more like images to convey information, which is more of what Instagram is. It's actually neat on Instagram because you can look into your demographics. So you'll see here, like I have a lot of kind of like 25 to 35-year-old women, mostly from like Saskatoon and the province of Saskatchewan. And yeah, so on Instagram, I just essentially like post pictures and stories. So those are like pictures that will go away after 24 hours. But definitely not used a ton for like medical social media information. So very popular with like emergency medicine, but definitely like just medicine in general is Twitter, where you can do these like 150 character tweets, so just like little posts. And it's nice because you can do both targeted and hashtag advocacy. So what that means is like targeted would be you could tag organizations or groups or people or like the prime minister in your post, and then they will potentially hopefully see it. And then hashtag would be you put like hashtag topic, and anyone following that topic will see will potentially see what you posted. So this is like an example of a bad tweet, so a tweet that's like not going to be effective. So that would just be like saying CMA states that government should invest in more healthcare. But then a good tweet would be one with targeted and hashtag advocacy. So like at CMA docs, so you're tagging them, states the Canadian government should invest in hashtag healthcare. So then people who are following healthcare will see that post, including a link. What do you think? And then more hashtags. Twitter is also like a very potentially easy way to go viral and have like many people see what you post. We know this is a Saskatoon psychiatrist who posted this really neat explanation of how mRNA vaccines work. That included some comedy and several swear words, and it really made the rounds. So it was shared almost like 300,000 times, probably even more now. I screenshotted this a little while ago. So yeah, potentially you can like make a huge impact. So Facebook, like I said, is the largest platform, like used almost worldwide. Um, and definitely like there is an older demographic there. So, um, yeah, probably not targeting like the under 30 crowd, but a lot of people. Um, Dr. Masri, an ICU doc in Saskatoon, probably most popular and well known on his Facebook, doing lots of advocacy, tons of posts, especially about the pandemic. Facebook's nice because you can kind of like, you can make the posts as long as you want, you can include links, pictures, and then you can kind of like, you get comments that you can reply to and everything. So kind of more user friendly and flexible than the other platforms, I would say. So possible challenges for just like being on social media, acting as more of a physician than your personal account. But definitely like these things should all be kept in mind, even if you're just doing regular old social media things on your normal personal account. So one would be professionalism. And some good questions to ask yourself is like, is this how I would frame my response if I was talking to, say, like a patient in my office, or if I was like directly in contact talking to someone right in front of me? Is my response typical of how I interact? Will I feel the same way tomorrow, 2 months from now, a year from now, if someone like found my comment? Because it will remain publicly available essentially forever. And will my response respect my professional obligations? And I think the biggest thing about this is like not doing the clapbacks and taking time to reply, especially if some troll like, just says some horrible, rude, abusive, incorrect information at you. Just, yeah, like taking time, either not replying at all or, doing what you would do if you kind of had a patient in the office spouting misinformation to you. And then another thing, just don't offer medical advice. I have this written right in my bio. I also have it written that I'm not checking DMs, so like direct messages. If people message me, I just don't even go into that part of my account. They can see that like their message hasn't been read, because you just don't even want to go there. Posting about patients. So this can be done like correctly and appropriately. And Dr. Masri actually has done this quite well. If you have seen his Facebook posts, he will like start by saying, the patient and their family is okay with me sharing this, but then he like still doesn't include identifying information and just kind of gives like general ideas of what's going on and what the family like wanted to convey. Otherwise, yeah, like generally off limits, obviously posting things about patients that you don't have consent for, that are identifying. Interacting with patients. Thankfully, I haven't really had this where my own patients have interacted with me on my account. But it would kind of be the same thing, like definitely, not giving them medical advice in that way. So either, deflecting or ignoring. And then as physicians, we really are reliable for accuracy of our content. So we should definitely not be posting misinformation ourselves. And, so whether that's, if you're going to put something out there, obviously, it should be accurate and peer reviewed. But if you don't know, so like sometimes people will, I'll make a post and then people will comment a question and I'm like, well, I actually have no idea. So definitely like, fine to say that as well. Avoiding conflicts of interest. So, that's just the same as with general medicine. unfortunately, big vaccine has not paid me for all my pro-vaccine posts. I'm still waiting on that. But yeah, or I mean, at least disclosing if you do have a conflict of interest or something. Um, and then just for yourself, like limiting screen time, and considering self-care and not getting wrapped up in things, and in replies and stuff like that. And then most institutions do have a policy or guideline, and it generally says all these things. Like we have one both from the U of S College of Med and also the SAS College of Physicians and Surgeons. And it's basically everything I talked about, but good to make yourself familiar with one that is local to you. So I hope that everyone watching now feels a bit more comfortable with being able to bust misinformation online. Whether that is, just dropping a link on a conspiracy post that you come across on Facebook, or whether you want to actually, create a medical advocacy account and try to educate and advocate through that. Either end of the spectrum is totally fine, but I think it's the pandemic has really highlighted the misinformation that can go on out there, and how rapidly it can spread, and it can truly affect the health of everyone, like not only of the individual that believes and posts these things, but of people that just don't have a lot of scientific or medical background themselves, that don't truly understand, and they come across this misinformation. So if you can, and you feel able to take some time out of your internet scrolling and myth bust and help share accurate information, it will truly make a difference. So these are just some of examples of things that I have posted to my account. Yeah, like I mostly trying to put accurate information out there, and sometimes specifically like misbusting inaccurate information that I've seen, just like clarifying guidelines, and memes. I've done a lot of memes. Sometimes out of frustration, sometimes to like highlight important medical information that's out there. So thanks everyone for listening, and yeah, feel free to follow along on my account, or get in touch with me if you would like to learn more or collaborate, or yeah, just chat about social media advocacy. So thanks everyone. Take care.